Hello everyone, I am Tasin Sabah. I am an author, if I can call myself that. I think I can, and I think I should for the sake of this video. I have never videoed myself before to be on YouTube, etc. But I thought if I'm going to do it, it has to be now. Because I would like to talk about my first published book and just the process, why I wrote the book, how I wrote it, what I'm working on right now. I'll also talk about KDP publishing, just the surface level stuff. I'm not going to go into all the details. There's plenty of other more informative videos for that. I am by no means completely familiar with all of it yet. I just know how to publish a paperback, which is what I did. I'm going to also quickly just scratch the surface on how publishing, self-publishing scene it feels on a personal level for newly published authors like myself. So if any of that interests you, stick around, and while I talk about the book that I wrote and the books that I'm working on, I'm going to also give book recommendations, but also just things that are similar to what I'm writing and or things that influenced me while I wrote. First of all, I published a book just a few months ago. At the beginning of the year, for New Year's, with my family and my friends, we were doing the New Year's resolution, and everybody was making really good plans, promotions and getting married and all sorts of things I hope will certainly come true for them this year. And they asked me, what do you expect? And I said, I want this year to be filled with joy and I want all of your wishes to come true. And they all kind of went. So, and then I was like, you know what? I interrupted someone else when they were doing their thing. I was like, oh, and then they kind of probably hate me now, but I went, listen, I actually have a resolution. And they went, okay. And I said that I will have published a book by the end of this year. So 2026, that is. I said it. Everybody looked at me like, everybody knows that I write, all my friends and family. And so they were like, and I've been trying to get published since I was like 12. So everybody, and yeah, I was slightly scared that this kind of crap was coming out of my mouth. So I decided that I should probably execute that plan. Me being me, if I say something to myself, especially out loud, and somebody else has witnessed or heard it, I will start competing with myself. I don't compete with anyone. I don't have jealousy problems or whatever. I am in competition with myself, and that's both a gift and an absolute curse, especially if you're a perfectionist. You know what that's like. Anyways, for my first book, I like criticism, I like editing. I have my certain friends who read my work and I tell them to straight up give me what they don't like, what they like, etc. And they do, and it never offends me. In fact, I appreciate it very much. The more honest, the more I appreciate it, because the more quickly I can improve. And writing is the one thing that I thoroughly enjoy, but also find a good challenge. So I feel like I'm always constantly learning new things, and I want to keep learning new things, and I want to find hurdles, and I want to overcome these hurdles. So this is something that I've been doing since I was bloody 5 years old. Horrible stories at 5 years old, but nevertheless 5 years old. And so I thought, you know what, I have a short story that I have basically completed, and I'm just gonna edit it a little bit. And I also had some drawings left over when I was coming up with the plot and so on. And I thought, you know what, lots of people self-publish, so that's what I did. And I have the writer's proof copy if you want to look at it for now. Ta-da! This is the book I'm talking about right now. It's not long at all. I think it's messy. It's 100 pages. Yeah, 101, and then an extra blank, 102. So it's a long short story. It's a novella. It's called The Nightman, a ghost story, and that's my name. And you have a little tapestry of lots of hummingbirds that are actually migratory birds or immigrant birds, we might say. And we have a little odd one down here who is kind of being left behind, or maybe he's not there at all. So this book is about Dr. Kareem, who has come to England to practice medicine because he thought that it would be a good opportunity. Especially since Bengal, where he's from, so either from Kolkata in India, modern day Kolkata, or not London, what am I saying? Or Bangladesh, so modern day Bangladesh. So he's a Bengali speaking man, and he comes to London because he wants to start his own clinic, and he does. So he moves into a flat that used to be an old Tudor manor. He has his clinic in the basement because it's dirty business, you know, bodies and all that. You don't want human waste to intervene with the neighbours. He starts to notice that some things keep recurring. It's almost as if this house, there was something that happened and just never left and never got forgotten. Alright, I can't speak, which is why I write. You can read the blurb on Amazon, etc. I won't read it because there's like this huge label that says not for sale that's blocking the thing. If you publish on KDP, your paperback writer's proof will probably look like this. You have a nice little picture of me without my glasses to make myself look like I didn't sit 2 inches off the screen watching WWE as a child. And inside you'll have little drawings that I did myself. You have Dr. Kareem, a young Dr. I won't show you too much because I want you to read it. There is one of my favourite characters. There's, I think, about 5 or 6 drawings, I'm not sure. Why did I write this book? I am a huge fan of historical fiction and especially historical horror. And I think, you know, I feel like in every type of horror you have this kind of notion of something that wasn't resolved. For example, ghosts, they are things that come back. They are revenants, you know, they come back to haunt because in their living, waking life they could not finish something that they started, or they weren't good people, or they were victims of bad people, etc. And they want something, and so they come back. And some of them want to leave, but they can't leave, and that's what they want as well. So this unresolved thing, and if there's anything that's unresolved, it's what we call post-colonial literature. But it does not mean that this country has lost all its colonial ties. And, you know, post means after, so it doesn't, even though the word sounds like it, it doesn't actually mean that the country has broken off with the colony and now it's its own thing, everything is forgiven, forgotten. No, actually quite the contrary, it's its own independent thing now, but the ghosts remain, the ghosts of the people who suffered, the ghosts of the people who did the suffering. The trauma, of course, is passed on through generations, or should I say pipeline. I shouldn't be joking about such things. Trust me, it's very serious. I'm just in a very confusing, unserious mood right now because I'm looking at myself making this video and I'm like, what on earth am I doing? Clarify something. I don't want to only write post-colonial stuff. There is in film you call it typecasting for actors, you know, and for example, if you usually play a kind of macho, you know, tough guy, and every time somebody has like a macho tough guy's character in their film, they hire you, and they don't want to hire you for anything else, even if you audition for a rom-com, whatever. That's what is kind of happening also with post-colonial literature. A lot of, let's say in my case, Bangladeshi, British, European, whatever, like if you're brown, you write only about brown people. And I do write about brown people, and I want to write about brown people. One of my favourite authors, Stephen Graham Jones, he said every one of his protagonists are going to be Blackfeet, the Native American tribe he's from, and he said he wants more representation of Blackfeet people. He wants to tell the history of Blackfeet people. He wants, if his book is turned into a film, he wants to see Blackfeet actors, or at least Native American actors, being casted. And I agree with this 100%. Especially for Bangladeshi people, I want to see that. And it's not just rarely still, in British TV we see it a bit more often, but still it's always Indians, and that's great when I see Indians being represented, or Pakistanis, or any other South Asian people. I love it, you know. But especially in Hollywood, it's extremely rare. They'll just have Priyanka Chopra and everything. Nothing wrong with Priyanka Chopra, of course. That's still pretty good because they're doing something. But I would like to see more. So in this book we have Dr. Kareem, but obviously not every character is Bangladeshi or, you know, Bengali. They are white English people. There's also a German lady. In some way or form, I like to keep that kind of, you know, that character who is Bengali and is either fitting into society or already exist in the society. You know, if you have a female character, even if she's perfectly in the society, you know, if she's a white, privileged, wealthy, beautiful, stunning, long-legged lady, she has a good job, blah blah blah, she's still gonna have clashes. Being a woman is creating a narrative in itself. So if you're Bengali, it's gonna create a narrative. So yeah, so I like to keep that narrative, and obviously it's not going to be the same for everyone. If you're a very wealthy, you know, you have an easy kind of Bengali who's not a new immigrant, like a 7th generation or whatever, it's not going to be the same as, for example, Dr. Kareem, who's just arrived by a ship and is probably being haunted by ghosts, in my amazing book, The Nightman, A Ghost Story. One of my favourite authors who also writes amazing short stories. She writes other stuff too, but Jhumpa Lahiri, I am pretty sure that's how you say her name. If I'm wrong, forgive me. I'm just a girl. That's why I write. I don't speak. Interpreter of Maladies. Absolutely gorgeous book. You can see I don't ever use sticky notes like that. I usually underline things with a pencil, and that's it. Maybe I'll write some like points if I'm really into it, obsessed with it, or I'm studying it for some reason, or I want to steal information. I will probably note little things down with a pencil. For uni or research, I sometimes use post-it notes, but this does not happen often. There's a lovely picture of her from the 90s, very adorable. Classic writer turtleneck moment. Won a Pulitzer Prize. If you believe in prizes, then there you go. And it has amazing stories with Bengali, Indian characters. Now there's people in India or Bangladesh, and there's people of diaspora who are constantly being haunted by some kind of ghost of their heritage, let's say. So there's people who are literally living through the war times in India, and so they're literally being haunted by a constant reminder of death and, you know, the inevitable violence. But there's also other people who, like, there's one of the stories where, it's the first story where the lights go out and they have to deal with each other because they have been having a sort of falling out, and they start having to confront feelings for each other. And it's not necessarily about being South Asian or whatever, but they are South Asian, and like I said before, it adds a layer of a really interesting, almost nostalgic narrative layer, and it's absolutely beautiful the way she writes the words. It's very visceral, not horror at all, but horror is also subjective, I think. This one, classic horror, everybody knows it. You probably don't expect it in this kind of video, but The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Love that last name. What the hell? Blatty. Where is Reagan? In here with us. Absolutely chilling book. It's about many things, but one of the most striking things in it is this feeling of constant isolation, of being misunderstood, of being terrified that no one believes you. You are sure there is something extremely wrong happening. Dr. Kareem, I think, is also suffering in this sort of way. He knows there is something awful, and he's not sure if it's malevolent, if it's human, non-human, but he knows it's here in this house, and it's freaking everywhere. Try not to swear because I'm a teacher too, and if my students are watching, I'm very sorry. Okay, I know I'm so late. This book, I'm not gonna say what it's about. Lots of people just say straight up that it's a vampire book, it's a western, and all of these are true and also not true at all. I'm not gonna say that because last time somebody told me that it was a vampire film, like for Sinners, the film Sinners. Absolutely confused. It was a good film, but it needed to be a series because lots of unresolved. This book is about a woman in her 40s. She's a researcher, and she's basically found a diary. She thinks this is probably belonging to her granddad. You have the point of view of the granddad, whose name is Arthur Buchan. Arthur is in 1912, and he's a Lutheran priest. And during one of his sermons, he finds that there is a strange Native American man sitting in one of the pews. he keeps coming and he's like wondering, is he trying to convert? Like, why is he here? I mean, great if he learns anything because they are savages and yeah, they should learn something from us. I'm happy to be teaching, etc. And one day this man comes to him and he says in English, not his language, so already shows that he's bi/multilingual. He's bi, I was gonna say bilingual, but multilingual. Anyway, I don't know if he's bi. This man comes up to Arthur Buchan and he says, I have a confession. And Arthur says, we are not Catholic, you don't do confessions. And he says, I have to confess something to you. And I don't know why I said it like that. Arthur Buchan starts kind of like, yeah, go ahead, tell me all your story. He starts to regret letting him say all this. Incredible book. Again, historical fiction. This is probably the closest, second closest. Maybe very close to this. I'm glad I read this afterwards because when I was publishing this, I was thinking, oh my god, I'm publishing some weird book. Then I read this and I realized, Stephen, thank you. I'm not alone. Read this. Read it. Or every other Stephen Graham Jones book. Non-fiction meeting the absolutely outrageous horror and gore. I should say it's very gory. Not the goriest I've read, but definitely, probably, possibly, plausibly one of the goriest books ever. When the horror meets the non-fiction aspect, I think it makes it, you know, the suspension of disbelief is a whole other level because this is a French book. I'm living, studying / working in Paris, so I am learning French too, very painstakingly. Even though in school I had the option to learn French and I chose Spanish. I regretted it as soon as I came here. My level is pretty okay now. There's a guy called Jean Ray or Jean Ray, and this book is not the other stories, just mainly this one, Le Grand Nocturne. My professor actually read my book and he said, you know, your book reminded me of this, and I went and got it. I just finished it. He was right. It's got a haunted house, or a house that holds a lot of sad and happy memories, and it's pretty surreal. My book is probably less surreal, but it does revolve around this house and strange things happening to them. The English title is The Great Nocturnal, which is such a freaking... I said this to my professor too. It reminds me of a David Lynch title or something. The Great Nocturnal. It's a very grey, rainy, dull, you know, like antique kind of feeling, rusty, lonely, sepia-toned thing. Very beautifully written as well. I read it in French first, didn't understand at least 20% of it. Reread it in English. French was more beautiful because it's the original language. Because some of the descriptions in French, they use a lot of eating vocabulary to describe a variety of different things. I don't know how to explain it. Like there was a thing where it said the walls were eating the rain or something like that. That's not exactly what they said, but in the English translation they just said like the wall was like soaking with rain or whatever, something like that. So, and I think the eating lexical field adds a whole other layer of monstrosity, you know. This book, Nathan Ballingrud, I hope I did not butcher your name, sir, I struggled to like it in the beginning, but then I actually loved it. I went from maybe 2 stars out of 5 to maybe 5 stars, or 4 stars at least. Some of the stories are extremely 5-star worthy, and some probably 3, but most of them I'd give literally a 5 because they're so different, and the tones are completely different, and it's just one of my favorite ones is The Butcher's Table. It's the last story. Oh, just look at the names: The Atlas of Hell, The Diabolist, Skull Pocket, The Maw, that's M-A-W, The Visible Filth, The Butcher's Table. Love it. Absolutely bonkers, beautiful, insane madman situation. I hate that it says soon to be a major motion picture on this copy. I hate that kind of shit. Ruins the covers instantly. However, nevertheless, beautiful. Very well written. I feel like it feels like you can feel the writing. I don't know if that's something that all writers like, but I love the feeling of being able to sense a kind of how the writer wrote it. Like for example, The Exorcist. Oh my god. The way this book feels in your mouth is just like when you say the words out loud, they absolutely feel like honey rolling off your tongue. It's crazy. Like you can feel the weight of it as if he wrote it while saying it out loud. I don't know how to explain it, especially the prologue. The blaze of sun wrung pops of sweat from the old man's brow, yet he cupped his hands around the glass of hot sweet tea as if to warm them. He could not shake the premonition. It clung to his back like chill wet leaves. You can feel it. I don't know how to explain it. It's just... Now that I have kind of told you about the books that are similar / influence my book, I want to also say a little bit about how it feels to be publishing, especially self-publishing, because it is a very strange thing. One of my friends was actually saying that it's better to actually self-publish because even if you publish with a publishing house these days, you have to do most of the promotion stuff unless you have like a good reputation already, which clearly I don't. You have to do all the publicity kind of things, which is one of the main reasons I'm actually making this video, because otherwise I would have been lying in my bed, going on about my day. I hate to see my face on a bloody screen, but I'm doing it anyway because I need to. I would like people to read this book and my future books, so I put a lot of effort into this and I don't want to make it go to waste. My brother was saying, why don't you promote your book, because it's published, but how will we know it's out there if no one's reading it and you're not even talking about it? And so yeah, I'm talking about it now. Okay, I don't know if it's because I'm not good with social media or what, but I'm trying to. I feel like if I'm genuine about why I wrote what I wrote, I will be able to get people to sympathize. People will want to read a writer who is real and cares about their story. I know for a fact that one of my favorite authors, Donna Tartt, said that a book is not something that you write because you read about the construction in the background. You write because it interests you. You write because you're obsessed with it. And I have been obsessed with this kind of narrative, and in a way I still am, about these stories about people, real people who existed, and quite frankly people don't remember them anymore. The very title is the Nightman, and a Nightman is basically another word for a gong farmer, which is like someone who collects night soil, someone who so before toilets you would have like a cesspit, so either from your privy, your little chamber, it would fall into a hole, or people would just go and throw their excrement and undesirables in a pit, and the Nightmen would come in the night because they were not accepted as part of society, not to be looked at, not to be smelt, and so they would come and collect the night soil. And then some of them would also be sailors, and they would take it out to whatever deposit system they had, sometimes to the ocean, which is what one of the characters does. Timothy, he is a sailing nightman. And then you have another character who is the Nightman, and there are other characters who come out at night, making them also the Nightman. And so these jobs were not very lucrative, and lots of people worked in factories during the Industrial Revolution. But even when they needed a lot of jobs, people tended to avoid these kinds of jobs, especially in the city, because it was just smelly business. It was also very dangerous. You could get sick very easily. You could die from suffocation in these pits and so on. And so lots of immigrant workers, people, even when people were generally educated or well off, they would, when they came to London, they would take up these jobs. And a lot of them were Lascars, who are basically generally Bengali origin men, generally Muslim, who would come to England, who'd work with England, travelling by sea. They usually weren't nightmen. They also sailed boats that had night soil being transported to the deposits. This is a very niche and unique historical figure, of course, but I don't think I've heard or read anything about these people until I did my research, because I just liked the sound of the Nightman, and I looked it up and I found that there was something called the Nightman, and it was this. So yeah, I also think literature should in some way be informative, and especially historical literature, obviously, because you can write absurdist things, you can write surreal things, you can write things that is, art for art's sake, and it would still say something about whatever you're writing about. Maybe it'll say something about you. And so I wanted to give the world something that maybe we have forgotten. And that's also what my protagonist does. He reminds everyone that there were certain people who lived here, who worked here, and we've forgotten them. Maybe we shouldn't. So, and by doing that, I think he also secures his own place in history, and I'm securing his. So, he's not real, but yeah. I should really see someone about that. With KDP, some of my old friends did not want to purchase this book from Amazon, so I gifted it to them, which is basically like them getting from Amazon anyway, because I got my copies printed from, you know, Kindle, but I understand why they wouldn't want to buy it. I'm also aware that you can self-publish things on Barnes & Noble's self-publishing website, and it's fairly better paid and also easier, but it does have less countries that it reaches. And one of the main reasons I wanted to publish it on Amazon is because I wanted my family that I haven't seen in a while in Bangladesh to be able to purchase it. And they were very proud of me, and I thank everyone who read these books, I mean the copies, and also bought them, so thank you very much. I also wanted to quickly tell you all that I'm working on a novel, a big novel that is set in the 60s. The protagonist is still South Asian. It's ambiguous exactly where in South Asia, because he's an orphan and he was raised by English Protestant nuns. And it's set in the 60s, and it's got a lot of what we called Baroque pop. So think Scott Walker, Rosemary's Baby, Psycho, the film, things like that, sort of medievalist revival 60s things, aesthetic, let's say. And it's about identity, lost identity, and sort of revival of identity as well during this tumultuous late 60s, early 70s period. And I think it's going to be pretty sad and violent. It is horror, and it does deal with very serious themes of violence and maybe some supernatural elements as well. I will make a separate video about books that I think are similar to what I'm working on right now, but I should be able to publish it maybe with Barnes & Noble's, I don't know, by the end of this year or early next year. So many thanks again to everybody who took the time to watch this badly edited video and for listening to me rant about my book. If you have any questions at all about the book, about the books that I recommended, about my future book, which the working title is currently Strangers, Strangers, but it might change. It will probably be a pretty long book, and if you have any questions whatsoever, if you have any comments, any encouragements, any complaints, feel free to let me know. I'll make also a video about what films are similar to this little thing, and like if you like this film, read my book, that sort of thing. But that will also be for promoting this book because I think it deserves the hype. If you like Victorian, ghostly, spooky things, narratives about immigrant struggles and about forgotten jobs and people, stories about lost love, about class struggles, if you want a sad romance, if you want an angry widow, if you want a lost sailor, you can read this book. And I'm laughing because my brother's copy that I gave him, and I signed it for him, and I wrote, "I hope you don't hate it," which basically sums up this video. Read this and I hope you don't hate it. Bye.